That's all I'm saying. Um, Speaking of staying in the state of Pennsylvania, big wrestling weekend in the state of Pennsylvania. In the former nation's capital, Philadelphia. I was stunned when a super fan of the podcast texted us and said, "Look at the ticket prices." And then I was like, maybe I shouldn't be that stunned. I don't know what they are this week, but it was like $400 for the session 6 of to get into the session 6, which was up in the nosebleeds. I think that just kind of speaks to how passionate people are about wrestling in this state.
Well, and wrestling fans in general. I mean, when Nationals was in Pittsburgh 5 or 6 years ago, and my father's a pretty big Penn State wrestling fan, I'm like, okay, Pittsburgh's easy, small town. I can get him there. We can make this work. What are all session passes? And all sessions then were like $450 for nosebleeds. And I'm like, yeah, he's not going to enjoy that, right? And if you're going to get your value out of an all session, you got to go in, you got to be there start to finish. You got to really watch it, right? And I'm like, he'd rather be in his living room. So wrestling fans are passionate. This is the event of the year. There's always something going on. I mean, in those early rounds, you got 5 or 6 mats, 6 mats going on. People, every mat that's affecting you, somebody to cheer for, somebody to cheer against. So it's a great event, but as a fan, I don't know that it's a purchase I would do.
I was just going to ask that.
Like, I don't know, as a Penn State fan, I would do a men's tournament something before I did wrestling, even in the first early rounds. Like, as long as it wasn't on the other side of the country, I would do that just to take in the NCAA tournament, right? Okay. Women's as well. I've done football, regular season and postseason stuff, so I would do that. I would be hard pressed, and no disrespect to the Penn State program and how good they are. It's just it's a better consumption from home.
Would you have said this 10 years ago? Because I think technology is a massive.
No, it's better now. I mean, with ESPN Plus and being able to pick your mat and do stuff, it's still. I mean, because if you can get a good seat or know where you're at, you can see your guys all the time. Like, you can watch your mats and know who your guys are, so you can pay attention to it. And I still think there's things that the national broadcasts struggle with in terms of current team score and what stuff means and what's going on. I think they could be better at that in terms of a ticker and what results are, because sometimes they're slow on that for wrestling, more than sometimes they're slow on that in wrestling. So, but in the arena, that's not going to be any better either, unless there's an app that somebody's feeding, and then you got to have service to get that app, or whoever's doing the, feeding the scores. So maybe I wouldn't have been as adamant a decade ago, but it's unless you're a hardcore fan, it's not to me at least, it's not a must-see event. I mean, and I like wrestling. I didn't ever wrestle, but I like covering it, I like stories, like the people. I just think you really got to be locked in if you're there. You don't go there to just kind of hang out and talk to your friends. You go there to watch.
I think it would be fun to be in the room for the championship bouts like that. I think that would be a blast. I would struggle, and I don't know that I am as big of a wrestling fan as you, or a big enough wrestling fan to, like, 6 mats at one time is a lot of action going on. So it's a lot of complicated just movement and things going on that I don't know that I'm benefiting that much being there for those. But I do think that there is value. And I think, to your point of, like, going to the NCAA tournament, like, one of the coolest experiences, like at Penn State when I was a student, that I got to do was go to when the women hosted the NCAA tournament, like a regional or not a regional, a first and second round for that. That was a lot of fun. It was a little bit different because it was at a home venue, and I still have never been to, like, I next time it's in DC, I think I kind of want to take the day and go. But yeah, I think I agree, and I think, to me, the biggest difference is the technology piece, because I think that has helped, particularly people like me that are more casual on the spectrum, did not really pay attention that much to wrestling 15 years ago. Now are pretty well tuned in, or at least know what's going on. In part because Penn State is so big, but I think the other aspect is the fact that I think the other fact is it's so much easier to consume because it's right there for me. Any like, what are you looking for? Like, you think Penn State should chase down the points record that they set last year? Do you think they'll get 5? Like, how many national champions do you think Penn State walks out on the weekend with? Because I think it's probably going to be 4, and I don't know who.
I'm going to say 4. I don't know that it's going to be the 4 number 1 seeds, but I think 4 is fine. I don't think they go into it chasing down the points record, right? But I think that's how they wrestle, right? Like, yes. I think that's how Kale wants his guys to wrestle, is to get points and win and not make it close if they can help it. So if that would fall again, that wouldn't shock me. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're not getting the heavyweight championship, right? Like, I don't know. 10 weights. I mean, they're not. That's just not happening. So I think 4. 5 might surprise me a little bit. And I guess I would be surprised if they didn't win the national championship. I mean, pretty surprised actually. But there's a lot of good wrestlers out there that are going to, take points and spread the points around and be a challenge and whatever else. But they're also a challenge. Those people are also a challenge the teams that are going to push Penn State for points for second and third, right? So it's not just Penn State who's getting points taken away from them if other people win. So yeah, I guess I'm interested to see what Josh Barr looks like. They can, what he's like and how healthy he is and what that looks like.
I was thinking about this and what was interesting and my big takeaway, and I think we talked about this a little bit from the Big Tens, was I felt like this was the first time in a little bit that like the gap kind of shrunk for Penn State. It's still pretty wide in terms of like where they stand in the Big Ten, but it felt like between Carter's matches and then Carter's match and Greg's match at like it was like a little bit of a reminder. Now I do also wonder like how, not saying that they are, but like how seriously they take Big Tens compared to like the big show. And I think even in some of their language in terms of the conversation, you look at what Carter said after his Big Ten match. I think there is a switch, and I think in particular wrestlers are the best athletes at flipping that switch in a lot of ways. So I think I think 4 is where I'm at. I think they might get. I think they'll get 5 in. I think is probably into the championship, but I think 4 is what they'll end up with. I don't think that they will break the points record just because, based off of what I've said, I feel like the gap this season just not as quite as dominant, and maybe that's only because there's only one wrestler that's like really excited me this year, which is Carter, whereas last year it was Carter and Aaron. And I think that's big. I think the other thing that's interesting is like there's no really, like last year there was the big seeding storyline because of Carter's injury at I think it was Big Tens. And now this year there is like no seeding storylines pretty much whatsoever.
No, and I don't know that there's. I agree with what the flipping the switch thing. I mean, I don't think anybody's going through the motions of Big Tens, but if Big Tens mattered as much as Nationals did, they'd have a few more Big Ten championships. It feels like, I mean, not to diminish the competition or whatever else. And you're wrestling people you've seen 2 and 3 and 4 times in your career. So no, I'm excited to see what they do. My expectation. I mean, not that it's my ability, my need to foist that upon them, but my expectation would be that they're probably going to perform well and win. Being in Philly should be fun. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
Good. Yeah, I think that sums us up nicely. Just trying to. Now I'm just thinking about like what my plan of attack for in terms of streaming devices is going to be for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought that far yet, and I probably need to figure out if I'm going to, because again, we went a little Amish without YouTube TV, so I don't have my ESPN to figure that out. I mean, it's going to be Jeff, and I'll miss and again, I guess it's just something I was going to talk about anyway. I'm going to miss my favorite part if I don't have something, is those mat side interviews we get later in the tournament, like that we just have to do because we're going to get something good out of them. And I think they get one gem a year, and that's what enough to make them think, oh, we got to keep doing this, talking to sweaty, tired guys because we think they're going to give us something. And every once in a while they do, and that's enough to keep them like, okay, let's keep doing this again, even though 6 out of 10 of them are just awful, 2 out of 10 are okay, and maybe the other 2 are somewhat revealing.